Hello and namaste, everyone. My name is Prachi Rastogi, and I lead diversity and inclusion at IBM Asia Pacific. Thank you very much for giving us 60 minutes of your precious time. We will ensure it's worth your while and presence today. At the end of this 1 hour, if you're a business leader, you will go back impressed with the impactful role that you can play in your organization to make inclusion a ground reality. If you are an HR leader, you would go back with lots on your plate to make your company more inclusive. If you're neither a business leader nor an HR person here today, you will still go back with lots of ideas and reasons to be an ally to anybody around you and make a positive change in the society overall. We have some very impressive speakers, leaders from the industry to share with us their professional and personal journey. They will have lots of stories and messages for us to be on why to be inclusive, on why is it a business imperative and a human imperative and a moral imperative to be inclusive, how it makes a world of a difference when a person is totally excluded, not taken care of, and how that person flourishes when that person is embraced, loved for what that person brings to the table. But before all of that interesting discussion today, let's watch a role play live being played by two managers who wondering who should get promoted. Thank you, Preeti
Hi.
and Kanak.
Sure. Hi,
Hi, Preeti.
Kanak.
Hi, Preeti.
Hey. Hey, did you sleep well? Yeah. Seems haven't seen that beautiful advertisement that's come.
Yeah, I have, and it's just so touching. I can't tell you.
It
Oh
is, it
God,
is.
every
Yeah.
time I watch it, I get emotional.
Absolutely. It feels so nice when someone pays attention to you and is able to look beyond the obvious, isn't it?
हाँ, absolutely.
Wonderful.
चलो
Okay.
प्रीति, आज तो बहुत important discussion है.
Absolutely. Let's get into it. So, for this position, Kanak, I have a name in my mind. And I was thinking of recommending Adya for this position. What do you say?
Adya Gill.
That's right. That's right. So her contributions have always added a very unique flavor to our team's innovation, the kind of solutions that we deliver. She's absolutely worthy of it. You remember how she turned the tables around when she was able to deliver the best with her skills for the client? And we got that extension of the contract, which was so difficult to get. She's absolutely totally worth it. So I think, considering her skills, she is the complete, she's the fit of the frame for me. She's very
Hmm.
collaborative, very cooperative, creative, innovative, and also brings a very, very fresh perspective to the table. I think that is what is going to change the game for our project. What do you think?
That's good to know. But Preeti, I have another person in mind.
Sure.
Raj. Um,
Raj,
yeah, you
Raj
know
Malhotra?
Raj?
Raj Malhotra?
Yeah, yeah, the
Yes, yes,
same guy.
yes, yes, I know him, yes.
He has consistently met the performance standards. In the previous quarter, he displayed impressive dedication, saving a very critical project from missing its deadline. And Raj, his unwavering commitment actually makes him a very, very strong candidate for this recognition.
Hmm.
And not just that, he has that, that knack of bringing a little humor into daily grin. Remember
Hmm.
that time when entire office was frenzy because the internet connection decided to
Oh,
take an
yes.
unscheduled vacation?
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
And right in the middle of an important video conference.
I
Oh
know.
God,
I know.
crazy. But with few laughs and some clever troubleshooting, he not only got us back online, but also turned this very stressful situation into a memorable office legend. And we still talk about it.
Absolutely. How can one forget about that? But Kanak, what you're forgetting here is that it was not only Raj, it was also Adya along with Raj that did the wonders. फिर हम
Hmm.
खाली राज की बात क्यों कर रहे हैं?
Right, that's right.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. So I appreciate the points that you have actually made for Raj, and that's true. He's an excellent performer. He can turn the tables, but he has been recognized for all his contribution thus far. What we also should keep in consideration is that, how important it is to bring a person like Adya to the table, because she's going to bring a whole lot of varied experience with her. She's going to bring a diverse experience. She's going to bring inclusion in the team. So why not Adya? Why Raj only? What do you say
Hmm.
about it? उसका
No,
वेरिएड एक्सपीरियंस बहुत काम आता है कनक, बहुत काम आता है.
hmm, I understand your perspective, Preeti, but
Hmm.
I worry that if we prioritize diversity over performance, we might
Hmm.
unintentionally lower our standards, no? And then we also talk about equal opportunities, isn't that important?
I love that point actually. We should
Hmm.
focus on equal opportunity for sure. And we should definitely not lower our standards, not for diversity, not just to include diversity. But what we also need to understand here is that including Adya or considering Adya for promotion would not really mean that we are considering her because of diversity. How does a gender comes before her performance? She's a performer at par with Raj. So it's not about diversity, it's also about her performance.
यू नो ये भी तो देखो ना प्रीति दैट राज हमेशा अवेलेबल रहेगा उसके साथ
Hmm.
कोई इशू नहीं है लेट आवर्स वर्किंग का या ट्रैवल का एंड दिस रोल इज वेरी डिमांडिंग इन टर्म्स ऑफ टाइमलाइन एंड ट्रैवल हाउ विल आद्या मैनेज
I agree. I so agree. This client is very, very demanding, and this role is going to be very demanding in nature. But Kanak, does it mean that we've already assumed that Adya is not going to be available and Raj is going to be available and Adya will face issues, but Raj will not? We are assuming, right? We haven't actually had a conversation neither with Adya nor with Raj for that matter. In fact, just so you know, Adya actually led a cross geo team in her last role. And you know what? Uski availability ka koi issue nahi tha. She was available, she was up, she was running, and she always was up the curve. In fact, she was nominated as the best performer by the client. Imagine, by the
इज
client.
इट इज
Yes,
इट
yes, yeah.
That's a fair point. Perhaps, Preeti, we could establish clear set of criteria that considers both performance and contribution to diversity and inclusion, and that brings in different, perspectives.
That's right. That's right. I agree. Transparency is very, very important. And that's going to help employees also understand that how decisions are made. And they will also feel more confident in the fairness of the project, on the
I
process that we
totally
order.
agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree, and this will also maintain trust within the team.
I agree. Absolutely. So let's work towards creating a proper metric around it.
Yeah, chalo fir, let's reevaluate with a fresh perspective and a samosa, which I am craving for it now.
Absolutely. Time for some chai now. Let's go.
Chalo.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Preeti and Kanak, for their role play. This was so wonderful. This was actually a live discussion that happened between a real discussion that happened between two managers. And what a wonderful acting! And this is how bias. This is how real discussions take place. This is how bias takes place, and this is how we remind each other lovingly, a loving nudge to each other to be more inclusive, to be more aware. By the way, I also happen to be the fortunate manager in real life of Preeti Jain and Kanak Sharma, who were acting to be managers and talking about the promotions. And this year, they get full marks in their performance appraisal. So, with that, we come to the real discussion with the panelists. And as I said, it'll be worth your time. So, stay tuned to learn how to be an ally, why to be an ally, and how to make your company and also your home more beautiful and more inclusive, because all of us know it all starts at home. It intrigued me the other day when I was reading a McKinsey report, and one sentence, one statistic that stays with me is that for every 100 men that get promoted from entry level to managerial levels, only 87 women are being promoted. And this is McKinsey report latest. So it's still happening, it is still real. And it also saddens me a little bit on how although it's changing now, but how the societal bias leads to this. So it's not just the corporate world to blame. Of course, they have a big role to play to correct the bias, but they are not the only ones to blame. we as a society are equally responsible. Look at how differently we treat our girl child and a boy child. A boy from the very beginning is told not to be feminine at all, not to be soft, not to cry, not to wear pink. अरे ये क्या लड़कियों की तरह रो रहा है, and things like that. So basically the feminine, the soft side is cut from a little boy in the very beginning. Similarly, the masculine side of a little girl is also cut, and therefore we see very few women with a huge amount of logic, reasoning, adventure. I mean, a woman who's very adventurous, very logical, very good at reasoning is mostly sort of unfortunately seen as aggressive. And therefore we've cut both the genders in a way. A child is born out of a man and a woman, and therefore there is a man inside a woman, there is a woman inside a man. But we play our life only strictly as one gender. I'm a woman and I play this role. I'm a man and I play that role. And no wonder it get manifested like this at the workplace. With that, I'd like to invite our wonderful three panelists here. And I'll invite Madhura Das Gupta, CEO and founder Aspire for Her. Thank you very much, Madhura. We've seen the great work that you've done in the corporate world, and we know the great work in the diversity and inclusion space that Aspire for Her is doing in your guidance. In this next 45 minutes that we have, we'd love to know more about your personal journey and what Aspire for Her wants to do in this space. The second panelist, the second guest I have, thank you, is Usha Shrikant, Senior Vice President, IBM Consulting. I have the fortune of working with Usha Shrikant as a business leader at IBM. And what I find very, very special, apart from the great work she does in the as a business leader, is that she's an executive sponsor for Women in Technology. She is every day thinking about how to make IBM more inclusive for women in technology, how to be more gender balanced at IBM in senior roles, in roles that matter. Many, many times she's the one who tells me that, Prachi, we should be seen here externally and we should do this. These are the job fairs we should go to. And so there is this business leader who's actually thinking about how to be present externally and how to make an impact internally. What a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you, Usha. And our third panelist is Birgit Fosser. Birgit, Global Leader, IBM D&I. What a pleasure to have you with us right from Germany here. And there's one reason why, apart from the great work that you're doing at IBM, and you also happen to be my boss at IBM, so I'll make sure I'm the best to you. We really wanted somebody from outside of India as well, so that we see how bias plays a role outside of India as well, because it's commonly known that no, it's basically women are not treated the best, or basically there's a lot of bias in India or in the Asia Pacific region. And therefore, we'd like to hear from you live your experience and your life journey of how bias plays a role, if it does, anywhere and everywhere. Thank you, Birgit. And now that we're talking to you, Birgit, I have the first question for you. How is being inclusive a life essential for anybody on this earth?
Thank you, Prachi. Thank you for the friendly introduction. And let me say, I'm so proud to lead diversity and inclusion worldwide markets, and I love to work with you and the team. Yeah, being inclusive as a way of life. This is so essential because for both business on the one hand, career, and private life on the other hand. So I think this is a feeling of belonging, which is essential for us all. Sometimes I'm co-facilitating workshops for leaders. They're called Leading for Inclusion. And at the beginning, we ask the participants if they want to share a situation or time when they felt excluded in their life. And people remember those situations very well still after years or after decades when they felt excluded. This is so memorable. This is such a bad feeling which makes us all shrink and can also have a mental and physical impact. But we want people to grow, to feel included in business and also with family and friends. And this is why it's so important to act in an inclusive way to make sure people can grow and flourish and don't shrink.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Birgit, for that. And Madhura, the next question for you. Give us an example of how diverse perspectives on a particular subject helped you or your team, because you're literally living a second life now. It's so different from a life that you may have lived in the corporate world, and it requires different muscles. You see, when you're a CEO, founder of a company, or you're a business leader in the corporate world. So, would love to hear you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Prachi. Thank you for having me here. It's indeed a pleasure and a privilege to be part of this very august panel. Um, I'll tell you a little bit about, I think, why Aspire for Her came about, because it was this whole issue of inclusion or the lack thereof was something that propelled me to set up Aspire for Her. So I was a banker for 25 years. And, when I started this journey, I actually looked at, two very important stories and two incidents that happened in my life, which actually made me set up Aspire for Her. One of them was my very close friend who actually lamented to me. She was a very bright person. She lamented to me that she could not contribute for her father's cancer treatment because she had no money of her own. She had joined the workforce, and like many women, of our times, dropped out of the workforce to bring up a family. And she suddenly realized that for the parents who had actually done so much for her, she could not contribute to their well-being, and as a result of that, she felt very depressed. The same day, there was another young woman who came up, and I found out about her, and she said, I work with this fantastic organization, top notch consulting organization, and I'm leaving. She was very happy. I said, have you got a better job? And she said, no, I'm leaving because I'm getting into an arranged marriage, and the boy's family has said that they do not allow the women to work in their family. And I was so frustrated because I could not tell her that you're going to become my friend Priya in 20 years' time. You're going to be so depressed and so disappointed with life. Why do you want to give this up? I said, somebody needs to tell the story. Somebody needs to show the mirror to this young woman. And that's how, when I spoke to my mother, she said, great. And I talked a lot about statistics. I love statistics. I saw the gender gap data, and I saw that we were absolutely at the bottom in terms of women's economic participation. Our country is fourth from the bottom in a list of 146 countries. And that really saddened me, because I see the best and the brightest women around me in India. And I said, somebody needs to do something. And all of these stories, these three things happened. Then I spoke to my mother, and she said, what are you doing about it? And I said, I have to do something about it. Someone has to do something about it. And let that someone be me. That's how Aspire for Her was born. It is all about inclusion. It's about growth. And it's about ensuring that everyone has a place to build the wonderful country that we call India.
Thank you very much, Madhura. That was a great introduction to Aspire for Her. We'd love to know, more stories from you, especially your experience of doing this. It takes a lot to leave a full-fledged job and start something on your own. But for now, Usha, coming to you, with so much happening with business leaders like you in the corporate world, and many companies which want to do D&I, which are doing D&I, with so much happening in the world for diversity and inclusion, and especially women, let's talk about the gender agenda. What do you think we as women should do on our own personal biases, on our own imposter syndrome and stereotypes, uh, to be inclusive and not to feel like a victim, and actually do something about it, and not just wait for companies to do something about us?
I think, Prachi, you really touch on a point that I always tell, women around me when they come and say, I didn't get this and somebody should have helped me and so on. I tell them, men and women are equal. You stop going about this whole thing as though there is a quota, a reservation. You just need to be yourself. You need to be wanting that role. You need to be in that position because of the qualification that you have. And it's not, don't get bogged down by whether you're a man or a woman. And honestly, when we do our, selection of leadership, while a woman may get considered, a woman will never get selected just purely on the gender. It's all on the ability. And that's
Sure.
where the world is moving towards today. So I think for all of us, the biases are there for real. There is always, when you've got a woman getting considered for a role, for example, as a situation, there is always that extra check which gets done on, is she mobile, can she, work 24 by 7, and so those are extra checks. How old are her kids? We may not admit, but this is real. Okay.
Mm.
And I wonder whether they do the same checks on men before validating, right? So I think these biases are there for real, and it is important for us to neutralize the biases. For example, I will just tune you back, and I'm 27, 28 years in the industry. So when I had my son and he was 3 years old, one day my boss called on a weekend. He was very apologetic. He said, Usha, I'm really sorry I'm disturbing you on a weekend. I should not be doing this, blah, blah, blah. And he wasn't even telling me what he wanted to convey. And then I said, you know what? I work in this professional organization. I need to be 24 by 7. So just tell me what you need and I'll get it done. And then his approach changed. So I think it is important for us, in order to be that individual, be that champion who eliminates the biases. Today, nobody comes and asks me, will you do this role? Will you be able to travel? In fact, the joke in the office is they need to be, making me pay a little extra for the amount of seat utilization I do, because I seem to be staying longest. Okay. Now, I'm not suggesting that each one of us will need to do it. All varies depending on the role. But I think we have to be a confident self first. We need to be saying, whether it is mobility, whether it is a hardcore technical job, whether it is something else, we will do it based on our capability, and not because we don't need to be second in rung because we are women. I think once we all get that mindset in, rest of it will naturally follow. That's what I believe. We are here in a world of equals, and we are better than the men, is the way we need to feel about it. Self confidence is the one which will eliminate all the biases around us, Prachi. And that's what that I practice that. So it's
Yes.
just not about talking about it.
Yes, yes. I have so many follow-up things to ask you, Usha, but we'll come back to you. Um, Birgit, with so many policies, programs that companies make, and with so much news and posts and blogs about unconscious bias and how it plays a big role in our lives, I would love to hear, and we would love to hear from you, that how do we train our minds to be inclusive? Because we've learned what we've learned from, how we were brought up. um, so it is different from you sitting in Germany. It may be different from me sitting in India. But you've learned what you've learned. I've learned what I've learned. How do we unlearn and relearn? How do we train our minds to be inclusive? It is tough.
Thank you, Prachi. Yeah, great question. Yes, how to train the mind to be inclusive. So this is all around being very much, very, very conscious. Starting with to get the information, to read books, participate in training programs. For me, for example, being a facilitator in workshops about inclusion. But this is like we try to ride a bicycle while reading a book. And so the three things I really would like to recommend here is, first thing is practice, practice, practice consciously, and be very, very open for feedback. Second point is allow yourself to do mistakes. We don't have to be perfect. This is all a learning journey, and no one is perfect. So we all grew up with all those biases. We have to unlearn, we have to learn. Allow you to do mistakes. The third thing is, this is not a big, very big. This is not about traveling to New York and speak in front of the United Nations. This is about the small things every day. This is about asking and listening and learning every day and being very conscious about it. It's not enough to be to have good intentions. It's It's all about asking, listening, and learning every day, the small things. These are the three things I want to share here.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, I absolutely love it. And you've sort of simplified it for us that we have to practice it. Nobody can be healthy just thinking about the gym. You have to practice in the gym. So, so thank you very much for that. Madhura, coming back to you, what is the biggest hurdle? Or why there's so much struggle? Why there are only 87 women getting promoted for the 100 men who get promoted? So, what is the hurdle in being inclusive?
The 87 versus 100 statistic is a small part of the problem. There are actually other elements that I think we should start with, which is essentially how many women are really part of the workforce. I mean, if they're less than out of 100 working age women, if there are less than 20 who are part of the workforce, I think that's the first cause of concern. And then we move on to, the other huge unsurmountable barriers as they may seem to us today. But I think the biggest issue, the biggest single largest issue is the mindset. And I love the fact that Usha spoke about it, you spoke about it, Birgit also touched upon it. It's actually the mindset of the people around us. I was at a session the other day and we were having a set of beautiful conversations. And I'll just give you an example of this very successful woman leader who then, when she had got into chartered accountancy and when she wanted 700 rupees, this is quite a few years ago, for her to fill up the form and to become a full-fledged CA and to go in for an articleship, her mother said, why should I spend this 700 rupees on you? Because if it were my son, I know that I will have better ROI. She did not use the words ROI, but this is what she said. And she actually missed that opportunity many, many years ago. And then, of course, she went on to become the CEO of a renowned organization. And she went on to doing much, much bigger things in life. But this is the mindset which excludes women, which excludes not just women, but so many other folks who are actually fighting at the fringes.
Hmm.
It's just a very small example, but what are we doing, or what can all of us do to change it? I think that's the better question that we should answer. So we have a model, and we call it rather cheekily, E cubed is equal to MC cubed. And we feel that that is one of the models that we can use to fight mindsets and to build communities. So E cube is where we want, of course, all women in India to be, either in employment, in entrepreneurship, in education, which leads to one of these two. And MCCNC are the four critical success factors that can actually build mindsets. M is for mentors and role models. C is for courses, cohorts, and learning, opening up your minds to all the learning opportunities. And I loved what Birgit said about making mistakes and practice, practice, practice. It completely comes from there. The third piece is around career previews and around celebrating women and their careers, minorities and their careers, and folks who are typically excluded. And the last piece is the community. And I loved what Birgit said about the small things. And I want to call out somebody here who actually absolutely epitomizes that spirit to me. Her name is Soumya Prasada, and she has been a mentor at Aspire for her. She was dealing with a group of people who had lost their primary breadwinners to COVID. She was volunteering her time. And one of the small things she did is she just, one Sunday, she went across to the parents of this person who had lost his life and ensured that his entire family was taken care of. It's not that she did something huge. She traveled, she just took a car, went and traveled, spent 2 hours with the parents. It was such a small gesture, but that left such an indelible impression in my mind about how the small things, if she made those people feel included, she made those people feel that they were part of something bigger, part of a community. And I think that's how we need to look at this whole concept of inclusion. And it is our own small way. We're still very small, Prachi, you know that. It is our small way of trying to make a difference every day. But I'm so happy that there are so many IBMers like Soumya who actually walk with us on our journey and they make it happen every day.
Thank you very, very much for telling us the story of Soumya Prasad. We are absolutely lucky, so fortunate to have Soumya as an IBMer. And just the other day, I was talking to her, and how beautifully you remember her today, and I'm sure she's on the call listening to you. Thank you, Madhura. And I must tell everyone who's listening to us live, or if you're listening to the recording, that the work that Madhura is doing at Aspire for Her is fantastic. For IBM, she's training our high potential women, basically doing a lot of coaching, mentoring program for our high potential women, and we're doing it in India. We're planning to do it outside of India as well. So absolutely brilliant work, Madhura. And with that, I come to you, Usha. Being a business leader, you are on a daily basis talking to and working with, engaged with large teams. You're responsible for the largest unit at IBM and the largest number of people. So why do you think, one, is it important to have inclusive and engaged teams? And if it is important, how do we do it? Because there are so many business leaders now listening to you.
I think, Prachi, being inclusive to me is hygiene. It's necessary. And when I say being inclusive, diversity is one lens with which we would see. There are multiple other lenses. You may come from different social strata, you may come from different cultures. So, all of it is also something that we need to look at. I mean, I like the phrase that Madhura used in between on being in minority and driving inclusivity to the minority. And we can look at the minority lens in whichever way. Now, one of the main reasons I feel in business it's important is I think it gives you diversity of thought because usually majority is like a herd, it goes in one direction. So when you're looking at problem solving with a majority of the people with one mindset, you will approach the problem just in one way. Moment you've got somebody who's got a different background, you immediately get very innovative out of box solutions. A simple thing like that is what I tell all my teams, the need for being inclusive, whether it is gender, whether it is something else, and you actually see that in action all the time. And I think as and when the teams start to look at it in that way, moment you go and tell a guy, listen, you've got to be inclusive, be considerate on diversity, there is always this thing in the mind, oh, why should I do it for a woman, whatever. But then when you bring it in this lens, it takes a whole new meaning for them. And then they start looking at it, right? So that is something that I would just call out. I think the way we embrace it, we will need to start always with a top down approach
Hmm.
because you can't just communicate and assume things will happen, or you can't just set up a guideline or whatever. So, top down, demonstrating what we mean and actually practicing what we are talking about is very, very important. And it has to happen in multiple transactions and multiple scenarios. And you have to do it across the ecosystem, and then it slowly starts germinating. That's what I've seen happen. So it doesn't happen because you've got one person trying to champion the cause. It has got to be something that has to be, I almost feel it has to be culturally embedded in our DNA. Now, today, for example, I go back to my favorite thing in IBM. If you're having a job opening and you don't see one of the women leaders or even minority, if you're sitting in India, you don't see, something there, people immediately wake up and say, are there qualified people? Did we consider? It's almost got into our DNA today. And that's what I love. Now, just because you're considering doesn't mean you're going to give the job.
Yeah.
But that to me is step one where we start looking at it. I think that's what I feel. It has to be a cultural change, very much needed for diversity of thought and better solutions. That's what I could think of, Prachi, at this point.
Absolutely, absolutely, bang on, and I'm sure it gives a lot of fuel to the business leaders listening. And if I haven't told you before, Usha, I must say that your presence at IBM give women a lot of the confidence. You're a role model for many. Uh, because you come up with a lot of logic, reasoning, confidence, and the persona that you carry, that it is not a leader who's very gender oriented, a woman leader. You're a leader in your own right, and whatever that gender may be. So you must know that your presence makes a lot of impact, not only to IBMers, but a lot of people outside too. So thank you very much, Usha. And now that we're right in the middle, in fact 5 minutes over, I want to ask you one more question, Usha. We know about your long working hours and the extra pay IBM must give to you, but I want to know, what can we find you doing if you're not working? How do you unwind?
Lot of many different things, and I also have a long scrapbook of wishes. I always believe if you fulfill all your wishes, life will be boring. You always need to have a backlog of what you want to do. So, not in any order of priority, I love yoga and meditation. And I was not a great fan of it. I used to ridicule, what is this, 10 years back, but some life events, and now I've started. At some point in time, I actually aspire, I want to be a yoga teacher. Don't laugh at me, but that's one of the aspirations. I told you I will be unraveling what my book of wishes are, right? I think the other thing that I love right now, I'm physically fit. I don't know for how many years, but I love to go on treks. And to me, when you're going on treks, it's almost a thing which kind of takes you away from everyone, and you start enjoying nature, being a part of nature, and so on. So that's the other piece that you will see me doing. And the last one, I actually love being at home, cleaning the house and cooking. Now, don't laugh at me again. They are mega stress busters for me. They're mega stress busters for me. And I'm not a great cook, but I love the idea of, a Sunday evening sitting down, making something, and then feeling good about it. And these are all different things which make me a little more balanced in life, I always feel, as I go along.
I hope that gives a message to all of you women listening, that is so important to live every aspect of your life. So look at this business leader who wants to be aspires to be a yoga teacher, loves cooking at home, cleaning her house. And by the way, secretly, I also got to know that she's so good with her physical wellness that she does 2 days of yoga, 2 days of strength training, and 2 days of running. So hopefully one day of rest. So I want to convey this to you, that if she can take out time, so can we. So don't believe if a woman or anybody tells you, I don't have time for myself, I can't look after myself. So a person who can't take out time for herself, himself, can never give you quality time. Thank you very much, Usha, for that. And Madhura, coming back to you, and also the same question to you, Birgit, I would like to know, who has been your role model from an inclusive behavior point of view? Because both of you are in the diversity and inclusion straight business. And how have they impacted your lives?
So,
Madhura, do you want
should
to
I
go
go?
first?
Yeah, I'll go first, Bhagat. And this is one of our community members in the Not Alone community, which I mentioned some time back. She has truly been a role model. It's not somebody who you know, but once I tell you her story, you will realize what I'm talking about. She lost her husband, and at one point in time, she was almost suicidal because she felt that life was not worth living anymore. Uh, she came into our community, she got her mentors, she got her role models, she did everything, she moved on her journey. I spoke to her a few days ago, and she said, Madhura, after what I have got through all the resources that I have enjoyed, I have ensured that there are at least 6 other lives that I have changed. The whole concept of paying it forward. And I felt so incredibly humbled, because all of us are living in such stressful lives, and we trip and we complain about so many small things going wrong in her life. Here is a person who has lost her husband, who had lost her will to live, and she has ensured that she's got the scraps of courage. She has moved out of that, transitioned out of that intense grief that she was in, and today she is actually doing the same thing for others.
Wow.
You know, I don't want to give her name. She works in an amazing organization. And, I was so humbled to hear this story that I thought that I should really nominate her as my role model today.
Thank you very much, Madhura. That is indeed very inspiring. And Birgit, the same question to you.
Yeah, thank you, Prachi. So let me share one big aha moment for me. Um, some experience when it was in the morning when I took the same public transportation train with a colleague of mine. And when we wanted to exit the train, we saw that it was difficult to exit because of some construction work happening there. It just started and it would take some months. And we went to IBM and other things in my mind. And in the afternoon, I met this colleague again, and he told me that he called the local transport authority, told them about the problem, and asked them to make sure that physically disabled people can exit the train also in the months of the construction work. We have both seen it. I did nothing, and he decided to act. And this was such a big aha moment for me, because my learning was pay attention, see, listen, and take action. These are very, I said it already, very often it's the small things like this phone call he did. I learned a lot from him, and he was my mentor for several years, and we did a lot together. And this was my first personal aha moment with him, and this was really a big one.
Thank you very much, Birgit. Such a proud moment to know that you had that experience with an IBMer. I mean, IBM has been doing diversity and inclusion for 112 plus years now. D&I is really in our DNA. And look at our business leaders. You're seeing Usha, but there are
Yeah.
many more leaders who absolutely embody inclusion and make it a reality for us. So thank you for sharing that, Birgit. You three are so good that I'm forgetting my next question, but I'll try to remember it now. And Mathura, I have there are many questions that I'm receiving from the audience, and I promise I will take some of them. But there's some very interesting questions that I have to. What do you do to unwind? I know, Madhura, that you have a 24, probably you work 30 hours out of the 24 that we have in a day. I've seen you writing to me like in the middle of the night. And so I know that you work very hard. But what do you do to unwind? It is so important to give a little break to your mind for it to work better. So what do you do for that?
Well, great question, and this is the one that I had to think the most about. I must tell you this, Prachi, as well. I actually, I watch a lot of Netflix. I watch a lot of OTT. Usha cooks. Well, I don't. My husband does. So I taste all. I'm a taster for all his food, and we try to discover new cuisines through his discoveries. I love to travel. So, as I told you that I will be traveling soon next month. So I'm very excited because travel actually, helps me also ensure that there are so many new experiences that you drink in. And you also, I think, become a better person after that, and a more inclusive person, if you will. But yeah, I think this is what I do. I usually watch Netflix from about 12 in the night to I'm afraid to say till 3 a.m. also at times, but I love binge watching. And, my favorite show so far has been Madam Secretary. In case you were thinking to ask, it's also, I think, one of the leaders who I really look up to, of course, fictional. But I love the way in which she includes two conflicting parties and how she comes up with amazing solutions all the time without offending either of them. I think it's an important life skill for all of us.
Well, thank you, thank you for sharing. On a Friday evening, you tell us what to do this weekend. So I hope everyone noted that down. And coming back to you, Usha, what is I don't want to say a woman, but as a human being, have you faced bias? And how did you deal with it? And what was the bias, if you would like to share that with us?
I think bias happens all the time, right? Consciously or unconsciously. And I don't believe the bias is just because I keep thinking it's not because it's a man or a woman. It's the way someone judges you at different points in time. So there was one moment which actually made me change my career when the bias got demonstrated. It's very very early in the days, but I just feel like sharing. I'm an instrumentation engineer by background, and typically, if you're an instrumentation engineer, you work in the process plants 24 by 7, you work in shifts, etc. I was fascinated with that whole thing in my engineering days, and in spite of my parents saying that's not what you need to go for, I said no, I need to do, because I always wanted to do what my dad didn't want me to do. Okay, that's the rebel in me. So uh, I was in my final year, good grades, very good grades, and there was one petrochemical company which came in for placements in the college, a very prestigious one. I thought I got through because they said there is this final interview you've got to come to the plant and do, and then the offer letter comes to you. So the final interview is a formality, is what we were told. And four of us, one woman, three men, go, and we are talking about the party we are going to have after the meeting and whatever, after the interview, and how we are going to, the pay was fantastic, etc. I go there, and I'm the last in the sequence. And I go in, and the general manager of the plant says, "Oh, you're a woman." I mean, and to be received in that manner. And then he immediately corrected himself. And the whole fiasco happened because this was in Maharashtra. In Maharashtra, you normally write your surname, right? So somewhere the miss got, the typo happened, like it happens at times, and they never took the photographs, etc. So that was an era where they didn't. So they thought I'm a guy. And then he said, "Listen, this is a 24 by 7 role. I know you're very qualified and capable, but I don't think I'm going to take you, even though you've cleared everything which was there." And, the rebel in me said, "What the hell? I need to set the place right." But then I came back home and I spoke to my dad, and I was really bottom. And then I said, there are certain fights you pick up in life and certain things you don't. And that's when I said, I'm going to change the bias, but in a different manner. Don't go into the plants where they're not yet ready. And this is, I'm talking about 30 years back, because this was even before I did my MBA. Then I just did a track change where I did my management degree and then moved on. And my whole thing in my mind was that incident impacted me very deeply, but it also doubled my resolve, saying, I'm going to be successful as a professional, but in a sensible way. So sometimes, when you pick your battles, you've got to be clear that you pick the battles you can win. And I just felt getting into the plant and trying to do was very hard in those days. So I said, I will still be successful, but probably with a different career. So it's a long winded one, but this is something which really, really impacted me. And I said, and it's good to face such situations early on in your career, because it really strengthens you, and then it takes you forward. So that's one, it just struck me, Prachi, and I thought I'll just share that across.
Thank you. It also teaches me that you took a very wise decision. You were you are a rebel. That doesn't mean that you will just go against all odds at all times. So you chose your battle, and that shows intelligence. So thank you for sharing that, Usha. So you see, all of us face biases, all of us go through ups and downs, all of us have faced tough times. And to you, Birgit, you sitting in Europe, a different environment from what we live in, I'd love to know what kind of biases have you faced, something that really stays with you, and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, thank you, Prachi. So one thing which really stayed with me was the experience at the beginning of my career when I was an application developer. I have been the only woman in the team, and I did not really feel bad, and I thought this is how it is. And then later, after 1.5 or 2 years, a second woman was hired. and you don't believe how good this was. I had a friend. I didn't make friends with all my male colleagues before, and this was probably a bias from my side. But now I had a friend. I didn't feel lonely any longer. Probably my performance went up and everything. I'm pretty sure about that. But this moment when I realized it, that I'm not longer alone here. So we are two women. This was really a good one. So what did I learn from that? We have to be looking at the female share in a team. We always have to make sure that we go to 20 or 30% of women. If there's only one person from a minority, this person will feel lonely. But I did not really feel. I didn't realize that I felt lonely. But this moment when the second female application developer was hired, this was a really good one, and it stayed with me until today.
I'm sure you hugged her and said, "Yeah, this is sisterhood."
Absolutely. And we are friends until today.
That's lovely. Could I just gently nudge you to also share a profound experience that you shared with me about your hair?
About my hair, yeah, this was a difficult one. So when I was appointed a manager, I've been the only female manager in this part of the business, and I had a mentor, and this mentor, it was a good one, and I really liked working with him. And then he gave me a good recommendation and said, "Yes, I think it would be good if you cut your hair now." I said, "What? You want me to cut my hair now?" "Yeah, this is only male managers around you, and better you cut your hair, then you look more professional, and everything will be easier." I was so angry. I was so angry. I said something like, "I don't care about your hair. Please don't care about my hair." Was what was not very, very clever, but I only had to express my emotions a little bit. Later, I learned that he probably thought this was a very good advice or recommendation, but of course he crossed the line, and this is nothing I wanted to hear and nothing what helped me there. So yes, this was impressive situation in my life. Yeah,
Yeah, a deep one actually. Telling somebody cut
absolutely.
your hair in. Yeah.
Yes,
So it happens everywhere, and
yes.
we deal with it. And I'm sure in its own ways it happens to all genders, including men. So we're not forgetting them at all. We absolutely love men, and DNI at IBM is not against men. It's not a zero-sum game. It's only being inclusive of all genders. And I want to pick up a couple of questions from the audience. So thank you very much, audience. I hope you received what you wanted to receive from the three leaders we have from the industry today. I've very much learned from them. Some of the questions I'll pick from here from the chat right now, but there will be some questions that I will not be able to pick. Find these three leaders on LinkedIn. They're fairly active on LinkedIn. Find them and write to them your questions. And maybe if they can find time, you set up time with them or you write to them, and I'm sure they'll find time to respond to you. So, but two questions I'll pick up right away. Usha, if I could request you to take this one, can you describe a time as a manager when diverse perspectives in your team led to a successful breakthrough or an innovative solution?
I think several, but I'll probably pick up one which comes top of mind and which also had a deep impact. Where this was a scenario where we were driving a complex program, and we were, like in all complex programs, at a point where the release date was going to be twice the time as we had contractually committed. It's a very normal thing to happen when the T's and C's don't join together. And here was a war room, all of us trying to do multiple things. And we always, this is not a diversity example, but the number of years of experience example. So it was a lot of people with wisdom, and they were doing, I would say, a PhD in every root cause which is there at a very, very technical lens. And there was this lady with 2 years experience who kind of was there. She was new in the team, and I still remember that very distinctly. She said, can I take a minute to share my perspective? And the whole room turned at her saying, what does she have to say? What will she know? And there was almost, they were dismissing her. And then I said, why don't we hear her? Anyway, we are not able to solve it. So why don't we listen to her? She said, see, whichever way you try and do, and we've been in this war room for the last how many hours, we've lost count, and we are not getting there. So why are we over engineering the solution? Why don't we go be very open with the client in order to say there are these challenges, and then work together with the client in order to look at a different approach. Now, this is a very, I mean, you'll say, what's so complex? I mean, what is it out of the solution? But the people who were senior with the knowledge knew
Yeah.
about it, but hesitated to give
Yeah.
this as a solution because this looks like a very simple solution, right? But then when she spoke about it, everybody looked around and, the body language said it all, saying, that's exactly what we should be doing. And that's what, we kind of did. So this was a very interesting one, very, very normal. But the good part was the lady had the courage in order to say, you guys are, doing a PhD in something which will never take off. Go back and revisit the whole thing. So that's one experience.
Well, good. Yeah, brilliant. I mean, also the leaders were open to that simple idea because mind always wants difficult things to do. So thank you for sharing, Visha, and I hope the person who asked the question is satisfied with the answer. And last question to you, Madhura, since you work with so many communities, you actually run them so successfully. What advice can you give to those who want to get more involved in making their communities or workplaces more inclusive and alleviate bias?
Oh, great question, and thank you so much for asking that. I think the concept that we try to drive, and which actually holds for every community that you're trying to build yourself as well, is if she can see it, she can be it. Please remember that all of you are role models in your everyday lives. You, whether it's for your family, whether it's for immediate circle, for your network, or for people who are seeing you at work. uh, Even when you do something small, and I'm going to pick Birgit's, my favorite point from Birgit's conversation, it has an impact. That young woman who made that point in Usha's team, finally, so after so many years, Usha is remembering her contribution. So everything that we say and we do has an impact. You are all role models in your everyday life. So all that we can tell you is just be more welcoming, but open up your minds to newer ideas, and do not fall to be a slave of the curse of the mindset. That's all I will say. Thank you so much, Prachi. And I must also say that Prachi and her team have done an amazing job in putting together a program for the women of IBM. Very, very lovingly put together with a lot of thought. And we are hoping, Prachi, that both the Shine and the Search programs that we have talked about and envisaged will also ensure that people get a lot more food for thought for topics like this. But they're very lucky to have you. They're very lucky to have you, Preeti and Kanak. I think I should just make that point, before we leave.
And we are quite privileged to have you, Madhura, Usha, and Birgit today as we end the session. And the lovely audience, you stayed with us 60 minutes, and I hope you received what you wanted to receive. Or if you listen to it as a recording, I hope you will save this for your company, learn a lot from it, and wherever you are, make a positive change in the society. So, with that, thank you very much, Usha, Birgit, and Madhura. It was such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.